Free-flowing rivers are ancient and eternal, diverse in their forms and functions. Arterial networks, changing through time, carving into, traversing, sculpting, and connecting landscapes. Riverine ecosystems are the most diverse terrestrial ecosystems relative to uplands on every continent on Earth. Conveying water, scouring, transporting, and depositing mineral sediment, wood, seeds, and organisms. Some rivers provide connectivity between the oceans and the interiors of continents. A driving process that distinguishes every stream from another is its flow regime, which is determined by combinations of climate and geology. Selective pressures associated with flow regime can drive evolution. The annual and interannual variability in flow can be characterized as a hydrograph, volume of water flowing through time. And these hydrographs can be summarized as flood frequencies, magnitudes, durations, exceedance probabilities, etc. But these summaries of the statistical properties of the flow regimes of rivers don't necessarily convey the beauty, such as this imagery of the Platte River with cranes migrating according to the seasonal rhythms of the Platte. Artists and musicians have been inspired for centuries by rivers. Handel wrote water music for King George in tribute to the Thames River in England. And Johann Strauss wrote what we're listening to as a tribute to the Danube. And in seeing and feeling the rhythm of the rivers that I work on, I started to try to see if I could figure out how to get the rivers to express themselves in a musical form through conversions of hydrographs into musical notes and then an expression of those notes as instruments. So I started to work in the program R and developed a way of importing USGS flow data and auditioning those data, different flow years, looking for interesting patterns, and then taking those patterns from a particular auditioned flow year and converting them into what's called musical instrument digital interface, which is a digital translation of music. And I was able to convert into MIDI and then bring it into a digital audio editing program, in this case Cubase, and take those MIDI notes, which you'll see here, each day, each daily average flow is converted here into an actual musical note. Those musical notes can then be routed to a variety of instruments, everything from a keyboard to an electric guitar to a trumpet. And in this case, I started with just tones and converted that into grand piano, and ultimately routed that through several different instruments to create an orchestra of sound based on the daily average flows of the Yampa River. So in this case, the music actually does play the band, the river plays the instruments. And within the software, you can then translate those MIDI notes into chords and into sheet music to be played by live musicians. So now I'm going to share 4 pieces that were composed by 4 different rivers in the western United States, and we're going to start with this beautiful melody that the North Fork of the Poudre River north of Fort Collins played in 3 snowmelt hydrographs in 3 consecutive years. And you'll notice this is synchronized to time-lapse photography taken by the Platte River Time-Lapse Project. And note the great blue heron. mesmerizing. I feel a little like Lawrence Welk queuing up the next big act. But the next creek we're going to do is St. Vrain Creek near Lyons. And I did not synchronize a hydrograph with this so that we can really highlight the black and white photography of local photographer John Crane. So this is the St. Vrain Creek in 1976. Wow, dramatic. Sounded like Igor Stravinsky, but that was St. Vrain Creek in 1976. The Yampa River in northwestern Colorado is one of my favorite rivers, and in 1984 there was an exceptionally high snowpack year and high runoff. And so I worked with local musician Tim Massa, and we did a little bit of interpretive work with this one. We looped that flood 4 times. It had a beautiful melody that year and added some field recorded birds as well as drum beats. Beautiful melodies from the Yampa River in 1984. Well, Ben Franklin said there's nothing new under the sun, and that is true in this case as well. Here's another interpretation of water flowing into digital music.
What you're seeing here is a temple, a water temple, a monument to the history of water control in Mexico City. It's marking the place where two old water systems conjoined. One is coming in from the west, from the Lerma, a separate watershed, and another part is coming in from Xochimilco. These two different sets of architectures bring together two different epochs of water control history in Mexico City.
Maybe an ancient Aztec pyramid is actually a modern structure, and underneath that representation is the big aqueduct that brought the water from the Rio Lerma system about 40 miles away. It went underneath where I'm standing here and into this building that resembles a Roman Pantheon, where there was an enormous tank where visitors could actually look into and see the water that came from afar into Mexico City. Now the water has been moved because it was damaging the murals that Diego Rivera painted in the building. We don't often think of water as having a musical sound, but an electronics expert has managed to convert the sound of the water rushing through the aqueduct and convert that to an electronic signal and then into music. So this is the transcribed sound of the water arriving to Mexico City.
The next piece we have for you is the Green River in western Colorado and eastern Utah. And this river was dammed in 1963, and so this is 3 years of snowmelt peaks prior to the completion of that dam, and 3 years after the completion of the dam. So this is the Green River at Greendale. This is the last winter before the dam is completed, and just listen during this snowmelt peak how lively the river is in its last throes of being a free-flowing primordial stream. As you will hear, for a few years following the completion of the Flaming Gorge Dam, the Green River was in a perpetual state of winter as the reservoir filled. Management towards recovery of several threatened and endangered Colorado River fish species has led to prescriptive flow releases from Flaming Gorge Dam.